Self-propelled artillery is vital in modern warfare because it combines mobility, protection, and firepower, allowing it to quickly move, fire, and relocate, which is crucial in fast-paced and fluid combat situations, and to avoid counterfire. If a military runs out of self-propelled artillery, they run the risk of losing the ability to provide timely and effective fire support, leaving their forces vulnerable to enemy attacks and unable to keep pace with advancing or even retreating units. This could lead to significant tactical disadvantages, as the enemy could exploit the gaps in artillery coverage and counterattack more effectively. Because of this, we're taking yet another look at what Russia has still remaining in storage. First, our sponsor, private internet access. Do you worry about people tracking your online movements and stealing your personal data? Like what you search, what you watch, when you watch it, and not to mention things such as credit card information, banking details, passwords, and more? Well, if you're not using a VPN, you're pretty much leaving all your data out in the wind for anyone to use. It's like leaving all your doors and windows unlocked while on vacation. A VPN hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel, shielding your digital life from those that want to exploit your private information. And PIA is the best. And it's incredibly simple to use. It appears as just a small window in the bottom, you click where you want to connect, and done. And it can unlock tons of extra geo-restricted content. Like here on Netflix. In the US, the famous DOS boot isn't available, but switching and connecting to a server in Germany with PIA, it's now available for me to watch. And of course, you get a special deal. By using my link, piavpn.com/covercabal, you can grab an 83% discount on private internet access. That comes out to just $2.03 a month. And then they also give you 4 extra months completely for free. So go give it a try. Again, private internet access. Self-propelled artillery is a critical component in modern warfare due to its enhanced mobility, protection, and ability to provide sustained firepower under dynamic battlefield conditions. Unlike towed artillery, which relies on separate vehicles for movement and takes longer to deploy and relocate, self-propelled artillery units are motorized, and this allows them to move quickly into position, fire, and then relocate to avoid counter-battery fire. They also provide better protection for its crews, as these units are typically armored to withstand shrapnel, small arms fire, and sometimes even light direct fire. With towed artillery, the crew is more exposed during setup, firing, and takedown, making them more vulnerable to enemy attacks. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean towed artillery is useless. One major issue with self-propelled artillery is their much higher costs. But if you can afford it, self-propelled generally gives a big advantage over towed. Their mobility is crucial in fast-paced combat environments, but also in slower-paced warfare, where the front lines are barely moving. They still have the ability to quickly fire and hide, again avoiding counterfire. Their speed and flexibility can mean the difference between success and failure. And historically, self-propelled artillery has proven its value in several key conflicts. During World War II, the US M7 Priest self-propelled howitzer was absolutely vital in the Normandy campaign, providing continuous fire support as Allied forces advanced inland. In the 1973 Yom Kippur War, Israel effectively used self-propelled artillery like the M109 howitzer to combat Syrian and Egyptian offenses, with their mobility and protection proving vital to avoid counter-battery fire. And similarly, during the Gulf War in 1991, there the US Army's M109 Paladin played a crucial role in the coalition's rapid and overwhelming strategy against Iraqi forces. The ability to move quick, fire, and relocate makes these self-propelled units indispensable in achieving operational success. So, it's important to see just how many of these systems Russia has remaining in storage to replace their losses. And again, a huge thanks to HIMARS, who was instrumental in his work here. Also, major help again from Mark Krutov at Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty with satellite imagery. And it's especially true with some of the smaller bases that I myself couldn't justify spending money to get satellite imagery of. And again, to save some time, I'm not going to highlight every last base. HIMARS will be releasing much more detailed work on each and posting a thread on Twitter. But there's a total of 13 that we're tracking. A few of the more important ones, such as the 94th in Omsk. This one is by far the largest for self-propelled artillery, and they account for more than half of the total arsenal in storage. Before the war began, there was just over 2,500 pieces there, and you could see just fields and lots full of them. Then, with the comparison of our latest image here in mid-June, you can see just how it's thinned out. From 2,504 in 2021 to 1,566 now, so nearly 1,000 less. After that, the 80th Arsenal outside of Yekaterinburg. This one has seen surprisingly little change. Pre-war numbers were 717, and as of June 2024, it's 629. This base does, though, mostly consist of the oldest systems, like the 2S1 and 2S3, so they might be in worse conditions, but we'll get into that later. Then finally, the 120th Arsenal, that's interestingly just 100 kilometers from the border of Ukraine. Possibly for that reason, its numbers have been cut in half, from 343 before the war to just 187 in mid-July 2024. And those three really are the only important ones. They're the only bases that still have over 100. The next largest has just 57, and the rest even less. So that brings us to the total numbers. Pre-war, from the date we picked, roughly mid-2021, there was 4,273, and now, mid-2024, down to 2,565. That means roughly 40% are gone. Now that might not sound like a huge decrease, but it's important to note that we did not make distinctions between conditions. There's a few reasons for that, such as the nature of these vehicles compared to tanks, and also changes in minimum requirements for very high satellite resolution imagery, all of which make it more difficult to tell. But it's probably safe to assume that a large percentage of those remaining are in pretty rough shape. Naturally, Russia will be pulling the easiest to repair like normal, but we also get a hint of the condition based on the model. Here is our breakdown for self-propelled artillery by model. Some models are extremely different than others, but in general, the lower numbered, like the 2S1, is older than the higher numbered, like the 2S19. And looking at the percentage remaining of each, the older 2S1 has declined the least, with still over 72% remaining. This could give us a clue that these older systems that first became operational over 50 years ago are in worse shape. And then again, finally, we've mostly abandoned giving any sort of time frame as to when they run out because it's simply much more complicated than that. Some systems, like the 2S1, have declined at a pretty steady rate. Others, like the 2S4, 5, and 7, saw a big initial drop, but then the rate has slowed since. And there's several reasons that could explain that, such as the initial expansion of their forces and creating new units, such as after they mobilized. Also, different systems use different ammunition, and as we know, North Korea is reported to have sent artillery shells to Russia, so there might be shortages of certain types. Also, bottlenecks in repairing and overhauling them. Russia has been doing a lot of these work at many factories, and we've seen, especially with tanks and other armored vehicles, huge backlogs. It seems they're getting further and further behind, and this is actually a topic that we plan to cover soon. Anyway, drawing many conclusions from all this information is difficult and complex. However, one thing is true. The numbers are slowly, but surely declining, and they're not going to last forever.